Welcome back to College.town and NACDA 2026. I'm pleased to be joined by Charlie Baker, NCAA President. And as we record this, you're set to talk to the entire convention in the next couple of hours. What's the message that you want them to walk away hearing?
Well, I guess I would say that we're in what I would describe as sort of a messy middle on one of the biggest transformations that's taken place in college sports in 100 years. A lot of people say it's the third biggest thing: creation of the NCAA, the passage of Title IX, and the House injunction. Um, Obviously, that comes with all kinds of challenges, and you combine that with the decline in the 18-year-old population, which has been going on ever since my oldest went to college. He was part of the largest group of 18-year-olds ever, and that trend's going to continue. And the challenge associated with deciding where you want to be good, especially in Division One, but some of the challenges that are faced by higher education are across higher education, and they play out in all kinds of ways in college sports. That said, I spend enough time with young men and women who are playing college sports and their families to know that it remains one of the truly great human potential development machines we have. And for all the doomsayers out there, you should just know that when I got this job, there were about 520,000 student athletes in college sports in the United States. There are now about 560,000. So the idea that it's all disappearing is, wildly overhyped. And the simple truth is, bad news always goes farther than good news. And we got our fair share of the former, but we also got a ton of the latter.
I love the good news piece, which I'm going to ask you at the end. There's something near and dear to my heart that I'm going to ask you about.
Okay.
But we do have to have some headlines, storylines that we talk about. Obviously, yesterday with big news, the Texas Tech quarterback Brendan
Yep.
Sorsby, they granted the temporary injunction.
Not
When
so
you see
temporary,
that-
by the way.
Yeah. So
We filed an appeal on it. We'll see what happens.
okay, what's this mean for the integrity of college sports, Charlie?
Look, the overwhelming response from the college sports community to this was shock, which I think was appropriate. I was shocked. I think everybody was shocked. If you just look at the facts of the case, it's pretty open and shut that one of the most historic and critical rules across sports across the globe was violated by him over and over again, and violated by him at a point in time when, you don't become addicted when you start doing something. Okay, this all happened in his first year at Indiana, and I think it's unfortunate that he didn't seek treatment until after he was caught several years later, and I think for most people it was. The messages I got from most people were, what about all the kids who lost their college eligibility because they bet on their team? What about the NCAA Division I membership last year rejecting a proposal that was made by the governing bodies on the professional sports betting to move to more of a harm reduction approach? And they said, no, we want prohibition, including Texas Tech is one of the schools that voted to keep the prohibition. And then number three, he was betting on he didn't just bet on college sports in his own team in Indiana. He was betting on college sports through proxies when he was in Texas. And you sort of add the whole thing up, and I think the reaction from most people in the college sports world was, this is kind of a new low for all of us around our ability to enforce the rules. And I do think, in some weird, twisted way, it sends yet another signal to Washington that Senators Cantwell and Cruz and the folks in the House around the SCORE Act were on the right track when they were trying to create legislation that would give the NCAA the ability to simply enforce the rules that the membership agrees to. And 90%, 95% of the membership does. The other part about this that's so annoying and frustrating and challenging for most of the folks in D1 is the vast majority of the people in D1 don't go to court when they don't get their way. They accept the rules because they help make them. And I think for many people, this is kind of a seminal event.
Do you have concern that other student athletes would follow suit with what he is doing?
I mean, the message in this is basically you can bet $90,000 on all kinds of things over the course of a long period of time, and you can bet on your own team. And it's all going to be okay in the end if you get in front of the right judge in the right place, which I think it's an enormous challenge for everyone else who's teaching, educating, training, coaching young people.
Which is the NCAA does an incredible amount of education on the topic. So I'm sure it's frustrating from your point of view as well. I mean, you spend so many resources.
Well, in addition to that, if you play Division I sports, you're also signing an agreement that says you understand the rules about betting on sports, and you won't. And we do spend an enormous amount of money tracking bets, tracking bets that involve our championships. And we probably run the biggest integrity program in the world. And we track all the regular season stuff. We track all the championship and the championship stuff. We also track bad behavior by people being directed at our student athletes and coaches and officials by mostly bettors. There are other people in there too. We don't have a relationship with any of the sports books. We're probably the only league I can think of that actually advertises against betting on sports during the course of our tournaments. And I think, in many respects, college sports has tried very hard to draw a pretty bright line between sports betting and the act of actually playing and participating in college sports.
I'm sure you got the news as we did, reading on X or maybe text messages sent to you that other ADs across the country, other conferences are basically boycotting Texas Tech. What's your response when you read those messages?
One thing I've learned about this community generally is, it's very big and it's very diverse, and they make a lot of their own decisions. And I think people, in this particular case, I got a lot of phone calls yesterday. I'm sure everybody got a lot of phone calls yesterday. But the overwhelming response that I got from most of the phone calls I got was, this feels to me like, a real broken moment. And I don't, and people really couldn't articulate what that meant or what they might do about it. But a number of them did say that, more than ever, I really hope Congress can help us get to the point where we can actually enforce rules that everybody agrees are important to the integrity of the game and, frankly, the mental health of the kids. I mean, the other thing you worry about is if there are no rules around betting, sports betting is challenging for young people. The sports books have done a great job of creating all sorts of pathways into sports betting for young people. There's a million ways to violate it around the age limits and everything else. And you then throw the prediction markets in, which are even worse. And it's an enormously challenging time for young people in this space. And most of the kids who play sports are young. So this all makes me very nervous.
You brought it up, the Protect College Sports Act. What would you like to see? Any changes you'd like to see before that conversation continues?
Well, I'm going to start by saying that I'm incredibly impressed with and a fan of what Senators Cantwell and Cruz have done. It's very hard in Washington these days. And look, I actually spent 8 years as a Republican governor in a very blue state. I know a little bit about the challenges associated with finding common ground between and among the parties. And at the federal level, obviously, at this time, it's particularly difficult. And for Senator Cruz and Senator Cantwell and their staffs, for the two of them and their staffs to sit down literally for hours at a time, and you can read that bill and see where each one of them gave ground on issues that were important to them in pursuit of the betterment of the college sports overall. It's obvious. And there are certain things in there we would like to see revised. We're talking to the committee staff about that. But we're not, the stuff we're talking about is detail important, but it's not like a wholesale rewrite. We think the vast majority of that bill is in really good shape.
How much stock do you put into other parties' positions, such as when the Big Ten and SEC make statements against it and they collaborate on the issues? How much stock do you put in some of that type of conversation?
Can you give me a little more?
Well, when they kind of combine and just kind of say, oh, we don't like it as it is. Is that something that concerns you at all, or you just go, hey, that's kind of part of it?
Well, look, another thing about having been in public life for 16 years of my professional career, I accept the fact that you don't get everything you want out of legislation. It's a byproduct of a very messy democratic process. Way better than all the other alternatives, by the way. I think what I would say is a number of the issues that both the Big Ten and the SEC express concerns about are issues that we have concerns about. So I think look, one of the great jobs of the media is to separate us all into our corners. I get it, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that's where the vast majority of us hang out. And I think I think there are things that can be done to this bill that will make it more of what the sponsors intend of it. And I think that has to do with some of the stuff that certainly the SEC and the Big Ten talked about. But I talked to the 4 commissioners of the autonomy conferences every 2 weeks as a group, and I talk to them all individually all the time. So I feel like our relationships with those folks are quite good, and I think people are pretty good about putting what's on their mind on the table, and I know they want a bill too. So I view a lot of this at this point as sort of tire kicking, which happens whenever you have a political conversation going on, and something as big and as significant and as robust as a bipartisan approach to dealing with a very thorny problem like this one.
Okay, so this is starting year 3 for you, is that right?
I started in March of 23, so
Yes.
I am in the midst of year 3.
Year 3. You have an importance on visiting campuses across the country. When you visit, what do you learn when you go out? What's some of the takeaways you've enjoyed learning about?
That the kids who play college sports are really squared away, and they make me feel much better about their future. I mean, one of the reasons I took this job in the first place and didn't stay in politics is because politics wasn't exactly everything it had been for me for so many years. And I love what college sports does for the young people who play it. And I say to them all the time when I talk to them that, they learn all the right lessons. They know how to be teammates. They know how to ask good questions. They know how to take criticism. They know how to give criticism. They know how to get back up when they get knocked down. And they sometimes don't even appreciate all that they've learned. I mean, I've had conversations with them where they've said to me, "Well, I really don't understand how I would package this into a job interview." And I literally look at them and I say, "Are you a good teammate?" "Well, I like to think I am." "Can you take constructive criticism?" "Yeah, of course." "Can you give it constructively?" "Yeah, that's part of the game." "Can you get back up when you get knocked down?" "Do you understand that there's a process associated with winning?" I mean, they all get there when you ask them questions about it. And they really are overwhelmingly really good kids. And like I said, they make me feel much better about the future.
Final question for you before I get you out. I have to ask you about team impact. Is it touching you? I know this is important venture for you, but is it special to see the student athletes come along and take on this project and these initiatives and just be a blessing to these families around the country?
So my wife and I have been financial supporters of Team Impact personally for a very long time. They were started by some guys in Massachusetts. I'll tell you one story. First of all, I spent a bunch of time with a young Team Impact member who's a member of the Michigan hockey team here in Vegas during the men's hockey tournament. And he and his family were just wonderful. He has cerebral palsy. He's probably about 12, 15, somewhere in there. He goes down and hangs out around the ice, throws the pucks out onto the ice. And a number of the players, literally as a ritual, in every game will come up and start talking to him about team they're playing, the game, and all the rest. And he lights up and they light up and they love being around him. But probably the best story I ever heard was I visited a school up in South Dakota, and I can't remember if it was Augustana or Sioux Falls. It was one or the other basketball team. And I met the kid that was their Team Impact team member, and he had a terrible problem with his legs that was just kind of permanent and going to be debilitating over time. And I asked a couple guys on the team, I just said, "So tell me about Jack. How does he fit in with you all?" And they both looked at me and they said the same thing, which is, I used to hate running lines, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I used to hate the hill drills that our coach put us through. But now that we got to know Jack, we are so grateful that we have the opportunity to play and that we've been given this gift that he doesn't have, that we have something he will never have. And it's totally changed the way we think about everything. And we love him and we would do anything for him. And honestly, that's the answer. I've met dozens and dozens and dozens of Team Impact kids who are on teams and the teams that they're on. And first of all, it's a love affair of the highest order, but it is the biggest and best win-win I have ever seen. Nothing else is close. And we are so glad and so grateful to be in a relationship with them. And you may have seen our ads where they ran all the way through the spring tournaments. We're going to continue to promote Team Impact. We're going to continue to promote Team Impact both through other medias, but also through our own networks. And if it was up to me, every college program in the country would have a Team Impact kid on their team because it's such a great thing for the kids and such a great thing for the kids who play on the teams.
Charlie, thank you so much for what you do and your time here today.
It's nice to be with you. Thank you.